So welcome, everyone. I want, we're going to talk about the campaign, the transition, the first weeks of Trump, what this all means in the years ahead. When I think about it, I have a frog in my throat suddenly. It tempts me to paraphrase Betty Davis's line in the classic film All About Eve, fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride. This morning on Truth Social, Donald Trump tweeted out, "The Gaza Strip will be turned over to the United States by Israel at the conclusion of the fighting. The Palestinians, people like Chuck Schumer, very strange in my view, will already have been resettled in far safer and more beautiful communities. The world actually will have a chance. They will have a chance to be happy, safe, and free. The U.S., working with great development teams from all over the world, will slowly and carefully begin the construction of what could become one of the greatest and most spectacular, I assume he means real estate developments of all time. No soldiers by the U.S. would be needed." So let me ask each of you, and I'm going to start with you, Molly. How disruptive, or less charitably, how chaotic is this new administration going to be?
As the person here who knows the least about foreign policy, I'm very happy to go first. Look, again, here's the question. What is the signal and what is the noise, right? What is real and what is not real? Is Elon Musk going into federal computers and different agencies targeting U.S. aid? Is that real? I mean, I think with this Trump admin, in my mind anyway, and I spend a lot of time thinking about how we cover things and how the media covers things and how what we can bring to readers and listeners and watchers. In my mind, the key question is, what are the things that are crushing norms and institutions that we can't get back? And I do not, and again, I am the person on the stage who knows the least about foreign policy and has probably the least political experience too, but not the youngest person on this stage. But the least capable in some ways. But I just wonder, in my mind, as someone who is just mostly concerned with democracy continuing, not to be hyperbolic, but I wonder what are the sort of things that we should be looking at and what is the squirrel? And so that would be my larger question when I look at that truth, quote unquote.
Tim, by the way, I should note for the people in the green room that our timer isn't working. It's still stuck at 45, so we may be here for several hours.
Yes.
You gave away the game.
They just started it up. Tim, you want to?
Well, it's going to be chaotic, I think, Bob. That's what I got for you. The Gaza thing, look, at some level, I was talking to Michael Steele this morning, and I was like, if I was one of the trolley Democrats, I would say, let's just go ahead and let's do this right now. I'm sponsoring the bill. Like, who's the co-sponsor? Let's fund it. Let's do it, because so much of this stuff is just it's performative. It's show. It's the tariffs. It's you're going to send 20 Mounties to the border, and now I'm going to say that we've got the greatest deal in the world, and I'm the alpha, and Justin Trudeau is. And then in the meantime, there's a lot of other stuff that's actually happening, as Molly pointed out, throughout the government. So, like, sitting here right now and trying to predict what the chaos looks like, what the real ramifications are going to be, it's a fool's errand to predict 18 days in. I think that the one thing that we do know is that it will be chaotic, as my former boss, Jeb Bush, said. He called him the chaos candidate. He was right about that. We weren't good at winning votes, but we were right about that. And the chaos will end in something like there will be a real catastrophe. There'll be real harm. I mean, you remember that when he left the first time, there were people smearing their feces on the Capitol. The economy was in tatters. and and he didn't attend the transfer of power. I don't expect that this will end any prettier than that.
Karl, President Trump has flooded the zone with all this stuff. Executive orders, challenges to what people think are clearly established constitutional principles. And Democrats seem to have a hard time figuring out how to respond to that. So pretend, just for a minute, that you're a Democrat.
Now that is some role play.
I feel strangely liberated.
And we welcome you.
Yeah. All of the leftists in the room look at me differently now.
You're going to need a new outfit.
So,
Yeah. No, I'm not, buddy. No, I'm not.
so pretend you're advising the Democrats. How should they respond to all this?
Well, let me step back and put a frame around it. Incidentally, you mentioned the famous line out of the movie. I ended one of my columns with a more recent vintage line, "Buckle up, buttercups," because we are in for a wild ride. But think about this, though. Look at it from this perspective. Was the campaign fought over the issue of acquiring Greenland, restoring control of the canal, making Canada one or two new states, and building a resort, several hundreds of billions of dollar resort on the Mediterranean in Gaza? No. At the end of the
You
day,
don't remember the ads with the burkinis?
Pardon me?
You don't remember the ads with the people wearing the Trump burkinis, talking about how that was the plan? Weren't they running that ad in Michigan?
yeah, no. Thank God I lived in Texas and wasn't subjected to that news. It's my time. Don't be talking.
Sorry, Carl.
So, actually, my accent was better than yours. But look, the campaign he won for a reason he doesn't understand.
Inflation.
35% of the electorate were for him, and him come hell or high water. Mm-hmm. But 10 or 12 or 14% of the electorate were people who said, I don't like him. And I find him a terrible human being. But times were better, and things have been really bad the last 4 years. And she reluctantly represents more of the same. And so he gets 49 point, whatever it is, 8% of the vote, wins by 1.5% against a candidate who's been in the race for 100 days, less than 100 days. And he thinks that I've won the most victory like nobody knows. They've
Never seen it before.
Never seen it before. It's incredible. They say, sir, we've never seen anything so big. Why is it that everybody says, sir? I don't know. But no, he got elected because people said he's going to do something to get control of the border, which he's spending time doing. He's going to do something about the economy, particularly inflation. And he's going to make America strong and respected abroad. But all the rest of this stuff that's been going on that's dominated the coverage has little to nothing to do with that. And my sense is that if he keeps this up, I mean, particularly, the January 6th pardons, I think, offended people. This thing is going to amuse people, but at some point they're going to start saying, this is just simply crazy. I thought we were worried about, helping people here at home, and he's talking about a resort development in the Mediterranean. And so this is, I don't know if you've seen the picture of Susie Wiles looking at him, but I can understand her evident anger. I mean, they've come out.
Susie Wiles rolled her eyes back into her head.
Yeah, well, and also, if looks could kill, it was like, shut up. As he goes on about it's a wonderful, it's beautiful, it's going to be unbelievable beachfront property. I was so moved by it, I sent in a deposit.
So how much under threat? I mean, we can laugh about some of this, but it's also very serious. How much under threat is the constitutional order?
Well, look, I think we're about to have a real stress test. And it's not just about the Gaza thing, because Carl's right. People were voting for gas and grocery prices to be lower, not for Gaza and Greenland. But Trump is this sort of stochastic chaos monkey all the time. So he's going to find something in his head he obsesses about, and that's where the entire focus of government turns. Right now, he is letting a lot of his minions do these things that are in defiance of both Article 2 of the Constitution about congressional spending and the right of Congress under the Constitution to authorize and approve spending. I know that sounds boring, but it's actually a really significant constitutional challenge. What happens if the court orders start coming to the White House saying, stop this, and they just say no? Who's going to change it? Who's going to fight him? Who's going to stand up in the Republican Party and say, by God, I am a conservative, I believe in the rule of law and the Constitution? Name one person. Susan Collins? Oh, my pearls are being clutched so tightly. I don't know what to do except for capitulation. So Bob, I think we are in a moment where Trump's chaotic nature, where his very, very short attention span, look, squirrel, is always going to lead us to, a constant flood of, as Molly was saying, things that matter and things that don't matter. The things that do matter in my mind are Pam Bondi yesterday signing 14 orders in the Department of Justice, including things like we're not going to study foreign interference in American political life anymore. We're going to fire 5,000 people in the FBI and the Department of Justice because they have a tangential connection to any January 6th case. We're going to ignore court orders. I think we are in a moment where the amusement of Trump saying things like, we will pave Gaza, it will be a beautiful development. Carl's better than me, I'm just going to say it. But I can tell you one thing. If we go to Gaza, and Donald Trump says no American troops will go there, if they send American people there, we are at the beginning of an apocalyptic moment with the world of Islam, where they are going to believe that the Crusaders have come again, and we will have troops there within a matter of days because they'll start attacking the construction workers. And then we'll have more troops, and then we'll have air power pulling in. Then we'll be locked in this moment where I promise you we will be greeted as liberators. It's going to go great. Nothing could go wrong with a U.S. presence in Gaza.
Yeah. I often say that the President of the United States is the President of the world, but we only get to vote for him. The world doesn't get to vote for him or her. So let's talk about what this is doing to America's standing in the world. What's going to happen in the Middle East, in Ukraine, and what's the impact on our allies of the President's edicts on Greenland, the Panama Canal, and basically his invocation of a 19th century concept of manifest destiny? Carl, you want to start out because you do the best imitation.
No, don't encourage me. Well, look, first of all, we don't know, because we don't know, for example, what the policy is going to be on Ukraine. Is the policy on Ukraine going to be that Jack Keane and Mark Thiessen are advocating? How's Putin going to react? Is Trump going to feel like that he's going to realize that Putin is playing him, that Putin thinks that he's weak and can be rolled? So we don't know how that's all going to play out. But on this most immediate one, we've seen enough reaction. Look, the Palestinians tried to kill the king of Jordan's father. And the Egyptians have a deep, abiding concern about the presence of the Palestinians being on their border, let alone somehow being relocated to them. And so, in the Sinai, which has got about 1 million people living in it, they're mostly Bedouins who, frankly, have a different relationship with Israel than the Arabs, because the Bedouin people, there are many Bedouins who are citizens of Israel, and they don't have the same animosity towards the Jews that so many in the Arab world have. So this is going nowhere. And are we going to put in the hundreds of billions of dollars that are going to be needed to rebuild Gaza? I don't think so. And the people who are going to be calling the shots are the people in Dubai and Doha and Riyadh who have the money and have an obligation to help their fellow co-religionists recover. But we still have the fundamental problem of Hamas is there, and Hezbollah is still being supported, and the Houthis are a danger to the region and to the world. And none of this gets addressed by talking about grandiose plans for, taking what he did in Atlantic City and putting it on the coast of the Mediterranean.
And so then it would go bankrupt.
Four times.
I mean, Karl just, I mean, that's true. It's a little unknown kind of how this all shakes out with Gaza and Ukraine. One thing that we kind of know, though, at this point is things are going to change permanently about the U.S. rules-based, values-based order in the Western world, I think, right? Like, I mean, if you're in Western Europe, if you're in Central America right now, if you're Bukele and you're somebody that's like wants to do deals just based on interest with Trump, then okay, like you feel pretty good about the U.S.-El Salvador relationship right now. You're taking our prisoners and putting them in your weird, like creepy jails. But if you're in some of these other places, I think you have to start changing like how you think about how you're gonna, what security is gonna be, what trade relationships are gonna be, because I just don't think that we're reliable anymore, right? Like, isn't that change gonna happen no matter what actual policies happen?
Well, maybe, but the question is permanence. Look, let's not kid ourselves. There have been moments, Vietnam, where was America a dependable ally? Well, Jimmy Carter, president, weak, Russia on the move. Where were we? I'm not certain it is permanent. In fact, I have some friends in Europe, sort of let's call them the globalists, my fellow establishmentarians. And their attitude is that one good thing that will come out of this is, and is already coming out of this, is a sense of Europe saying, we have a responsibility. America is not as dependable as we want,
Right.
but we have to step up. Who would have thought that Poland would be spending nearly twice the percentage of GDP on its defense that we do? Who would have
That's
thought?
good, but in Africa and Central America, they're not going to say that. They're going to say we can rely on the Chinese.
Right.
now.
Right.
Well, but there's another thing. Let's not. Our adversary in China is not invincible, and Belt and Road is convincing a lot of people throughout the rest of the world that what it's done is it's got them in a debt trap. That the Chinese have come in and taken over the port, and they're making money off of it, and the country owes a lot of money still to China. And what the hell are we getting the benefit out of that?
Yeah.
So, look, there are going to be trouble. But A, I'm not certain it's permanent, and B, there may be some consequential good come out of bad things. I would never have thought that the 300-year policy of neutrality of one of the best arms, most lethal, best trained militaries in Europe, Sweden of all places, I say this as a Norwegian, I have to admit, it's painful to say this, would say we're in NATO. And Finland, which is, the whole experience of the Finnish people is dictated by Russia in 1939 and 1940. We are permanently aligning ourselves with the West. So
Do the Swedes really think we're going to come to their defense right now? If you talk to the people in Sweden,
Well,
if they're like, do they really
look.
think? I mean,
No, but look, A, they do believe that America will live up to the commitment, but B, they say, you know what, we better be ready to take be on the front line.
well, that's
And
Molly.
But this is the lesson from the first Trump administration, right? This is what happened the first time, right? Was that a lot? I mean, it wasn't to the same scale, but that happened. I mean, that's why I'm sort of more worried about what happens internally, with this sort of norms crushing. For example, I mean, if we talk about impoundment, just to go back to the very popular and exciting Office of Management and Budget. So there's, we have Russ Vought. He's going to be confirmed, even though Democrats, I think, did a pretty good filibuster or tried to filibuster him. They don't have the votes. He's getting confirmed. He is famous for impounding funds. He did that in the first admin. He's going to do it in the second. I mean, that stuff, like, there is an actual law against that, a post-Nixon law, the 1974 Impoundment Act.
yeah, well, it's more than, it was actually against the Constitution beforehand.
Right.
And the law in 74 is designed to make it clear
Yes.
that if you're going to, Congress has a voice in this, and we're setting up the procedure for how our voice will be heard. Right. And look, this one is the one, this is the one that worries me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
But
that-
I also
you're coming
believe,
back to
I
something
also believe, though,
that Rick said that I think is really important. So let's say there's a lawsuit and it goes all the way to the Supreme Court, and I would bet 8-1, for example, that they'll say birthright citizenship you can't revoke, it's in the Constitution. I would bet that the court would say, you can't spend the money wherever you want. You have to spend the money the way Congress appropriated it. Rick suggests that, well, he'll just ignore the court orders. Do we think he can do that?
no.
I hope not. I
Well,
mean,
but he has immunity. I mean, just to be a
No,
devil's advocate
he
here.
has,
right?
he has immunity in the performance of his official functions, but an unconstitutional act is not a part of his official function.
Right, but SEAL Team 6, remember SEAL
Yeah,
Team 6?
okay, but again, the president cannot say SEAL Team 6 by killing Rock Schnabel.
Right.
I'm just picking a name out of the hat right here. Ambassador, qualified ambassador, is somehow an official act.
Right.
So if they affirm, and I'm with you on this, I think the court by 8-1, I wouldn't be surprised to see a 9-0.
You're Clarence
Yeah, I think
Thomas.
that's
Well, no.
Wait, whoa. You think Alito and Thomas are going to be like Donald Trump, our guy? Can't
You know
do
what?
that.
I'm not certain when it comes to the the power, the Article 1 power or the purse, that the court is going to say, oh yeah, they didn't mean it. The
I'd
founders
be
did not mean
delighted.
it.
I'd be delighted.
But even then, I mean, the point is that, there are norms being busted. But let's be honest, we've been busting norms for 20 years, and then both parties are guilty in this. He's just made it an art form.
Well, so I actually was interested in your take on this because, well, for starters, I just hope you're right about all this. I got the father out there, and I want him to do a rosary that's just like, please have Karl be right. Please have Karl be right. I hope you're right about some of this.
Well, first of all, Catholic or Anglican?
All right, we're in business then. Okay,
right,
the Anglican rosary.
There we go.
Anglican rosary does us no good. But I think that at some level there's like you're understating this a little bit because not to bring back bad memories, but go back to our friend Alberto Gonzalez, right? Like I keep looking at this. He got run out of town because the Bush administration had pushed out. You know the story better than me. Like U.S. attorneys, that there was over political reasons, et cetera, et cetera. What they've done in the first 18 days is like that times 100. I mean, they're frog marching people out of the FBI building at the 7th floor of the FBI building because they investigated Trump. There's no lawyers in the. Where's Don McGahn? There's nobody in the room like there was in 2017 saying, guys, I don't think we can do this. Yep. And so to me, it's just like sure, Norm's been busted for 20 years. It's been happening with both parties, but like. Alberto resigned, right?
Well,
and like this is that
these
times
are
100.
These are not analogous. These are simply not analogous. U.S. attorneys serve at the sufferance of the president.
Right. This is way worse.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. We agree.
Yeah, but they went through and found the U.S. attorney in Nevada was refusing to prosecute child pornography cases, right? Unless he got a significant budget increase. Right. Well, okay, buddy, that's not.
No, I'm with you on this.
And he's out.
Yeah.
So the president has the authority to do that. Where the president's going to run into authority is when if they try and fire 5,000 people because they were involved in the investigation of January 6th.
They're trying.
Yeah, they're trying. But guess what? There are grounds on which you have a right or no right to fire somebody. You can't say you were assigned by your superior to be involved in an investigation of somebody who beat up a cop on January 6th, and therefore we're going to kick you out, because that doesn't fall under the 4 standards that are
The
allowed.
inspectors general are already gone. The 6 or 7 people on the top floor of the FBI are already gone.
Well, they have the authority to do that, frankly. The inspector general, they don't, and that's going to be interesting to see. Does Congress insist? Does one of those inspector general go to the court and say the 30-day notice required under the IG Act was not given to Congress? And what does the court do with that? But the key is going to be if they try and gut these agencies like the FBI by saying, you're out of here. There's 4 standards that you're allowed to fire somebody for, but none of those say that you were assigned by your superior to investigate January 6th.
Yeah, Rick, why don't you come in on this?
I think that there is especially because of the high-speed Silicon Valley-style disruptor model that Elon and his people follow. I mean, Trump barely understands his phone, but Elon and these guys are using a move fast and break things philosophy that's very much of the Valley. And they don't really care what the consequences are in the short term. So dropping the 5,000 people out of DOJ for doing their jobs, they will still do that because Trump will back his play. They will go to court. It will take years. Individually or collectively, they'll go to court. And it will take forever. And at that point, a lot of these smart lawyers that are being fired are just going to say, screw it, I'm going to go out and get a job in the real world. They're going to get their way in a lot of this, I think, because there is nothing in D.C., as Tim said correctly, there are no lawyers in the White House who will say, Mr. President, this is illegal and unconstitutional, you can't do it. Because if they do that, they won't be a lawyer in the White House any longer. And I can tell you, I
Those
know
people
Pam.
were there the
Are you-
first time.
are-
I
Those
know
people
Is
were there
everybody
the first
is-
time. That's an important difference.
Is everybody as depressed as Rick is about
Not Carl.
the ultimate, and Carl's not, how about you guys, about the ultimate outcome of this?
I don't know. I mean, I think it will remain to be seen. I guess what I would say is the thing that I'm the most discouraged about in the first 18 days or however many days we were at is, like if you go back to the Muslim ban situation, right? Like that was an illegal order, but Bannon jams it through. But then even internally in the White House in that first month, there were lawyers, there were folks on the other side of this saying, wait a minute, no, let's bring this back. We're going to rewrite it. We're going to do it more narrowly. We're going to find a way to do it legally. I still disagreed with the policy, but that you ended up in a result that was like within our constitutional order. There isn't really any evidence of that so far. I mean, you're not seeing anybody in the White House that's like, maybe we should take back the birthright citizenship thing is lost in court. There are
now 3 injunctions.
Yeah, in the
Yeah,
courts,
right.
some judges have held this up, but I'm pretty concerned internally that it doesn't seem like there's any checks on him, and that they're going to just sort of be Kool-Aid man busting through the wall when this stuff hits the fan. I hope not. I hope that's wrong. I hope that they listen to the courts, but that's what the evidence I see.
Molly,
My big worry is if you look at the confirmation fight, there are people, I mean, RFK Jr., what are we doing?
I was going to bring that
Right,
up.
what are we doing? And there is no way that, I mean, there are a wide swath of Republican senators who are very smart, some are doctors. Those guys know that this guy is a kook, right? They know it. They have no, and so the fact that he got through, he's about to get through, he got through committee, and that they're getting to people like Tillis. Remember, Tillis was a no, and Mitch McConnell was a no, and then 2 hours later, Tillis was a yes. I mean, what did they tell Tillis that changed his mind on Pete Hegseth?
Primary in 2026 in North
But-
Carolina.
So here's the question: like, you have no Republican senators who are going to stop him, right?
None.
I mean, that's my question. Is there a Republican senator? I mean, you have none. So who will stop him? And I think that's my real question.
Carl, anyone going to stand up?
Well, first of all, I love how everybody says, okay, everybody needs to oppose Donald Trump right from the beginning, and we're going to be angry if they don't commit suicide.
But
I want the Tom Tillises and the Susan Collins of the world to pick their shots, make their fights, and be around when this thing goes to hell in a handbasket.
Listen,
But
I
Susan
feel-
Collins just said she's going to vote for Tulsi Gabbard. That would have been a shot.
Yeah,
That
but
is a proximate
but
threat.
you know what? One of the reasons she did was because Todd Young said, I have very serious concerns about you, and you keep telling me I should be okay. I want it in writing. And read that letter. That letter commits her in writing to do a variety of things that 2 weeks ago she was not going to be willing to do. Now, you're right about RFK. Thank you. Remember, he was a Democrat. Thank you. Thank you, all you Democrats out there. But look.
Radical environmental activist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Pro-abortion up to the last month. I mean, thank you, Democrats. Really
we
appreciate
we
it.
call it
But here's the
pro-choice,
point.
but-
Here's the point. President ought to have, if there's, and look, I don't want to say that we have to have perfection. If he's a bad choice, you've got to vote against him and do it right now, even if it means your defeat. I mean, Cassidy is a good man. I would rather have him here for the next 8 years, the next 4 in particular, looking over the shoulder of RFK saying, I got a problem as the chairman of the Help Committee, than to have him replaced by a MAGA devotee who says anything Donald wants, Donald gets. So, we got a long game to play here if we want to save our country from the kind of damage that can be done in the short run. Over the long run, look, I'm Norwegian. I'm not supposed to be optimistic. But I am optimistic that the country will prevail. But we cannot, I love it. Has anybody here voted for, contributed to, supported Susan Collins? She's been my friend for 20 years. I am not going to criticize her if she says, you know what, I'm pushing this thing as far as I can get. Tom Tillis, I was driving around North Carolina when he was thinking about running for Senate. He is one of the best people. He's exactly what we like in public life. But I don't want him to be beat next year because he suddenly is going to be judged by you have to oppose every one of the president's problematic nominees.
Here's the problem
But
with
you
that, Carl, though.
How about opposing one of them?
Yeah, no.
Right.
Here's my problem. I just.
Well, okay, Susan. Okay, you've had a couple of senators who already voted against him, like Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski.
Yeah, but I'm talking about
do
your
they have to
friend
vote
Tom
against every
Tillis.
one of them?
Tom Tillis.
But here's the thing with Tillis. Like, here's the thing is like I'm with you if that time comes when the right thing happens, and this is what I'm skeptical about. Like, I think that if we got in a little DeLorean and went back to October, we were sitting here, me and Carl, and I was like, he's going to win, and he's going to nominate a weekend Fox and Friends host to run the military, and RFK to run HHS, and Gabbard to be in charge of our national security. People would be like, you have TDS, Miller. Like, that is crazy. Like, he would never put those people in, and then he did it. And we would never before that. And then they were for it. With your friend Tom Tillis, as a prime example, during the Attorney General hearing with Bondi, he's up there going, these Democrats are going to ask you if you will support Donald Trump when he pardons violent criminals that attacked cops. Donald Trump would never do that. So I am not going to even, I won't even insult you by asking you that question. A week later, Donald Trump does it, and Tom Tillis then supports the FBI director that was on the side of the cop beaters. So I guess I'm just kind of like, I worry that we're boiling frogs. It's like, yeah, sure, I'd rather have Tom Tillis there than porn pizza guy Mark Robinson, but I do wonder if he ever actually will do it. Because, right, you can always rationalize waiting till the next time.
Yeah, well, look, I get that. I get that. But I'm just saying the choice is you either trust the people over the long haul are going to stand up for the right of the Congress and stand up for reasonable policies, or you insist on every one of them right at the beginning doing what you think they ought to do and opposing the choice of the
But Carl,
president.
here's my worry about. Hang on.
Hey, look. We've just gone through 4 years during which it became apparent to virtually everybody in this room that we had a president who was incapable of putting together two sentences. And how many leaders? Let me finish. How many Democrats had the courage, like James Carville and David Axelrod, to say, maybe we ought to think about this differently?
We're getting off track here. And we're
They didn't pick him out
kind of talking
eventually.
about.
I'm with you on that one.
So Carl, I understand.
He's with me on that one.
I understand the argument that you don't want these guys to go out and commit seppuku on day one, because they feel like if they vote against Trump on these nominees, that they're going to catch a primary. And we know what happens when Donald Trump goes into a primary. They lose. The normies lose over and over and over again.
Except Susan
Here's my problem, though. Up until filing deadlines in 2026, any vote against Trump is going to get them a primary. Any vote that pisses him off, whether it's on a budget thing or on the Gaza redevelopment fund or anything, no matter what it is, they're going to catch a primary from his people. And there's also a chance, because the system doesn't work like it used to work when Mitch McConnell said, this guy's going to run and this guy's going to get effed. Now it works like Fox News decides somebody's going to be a nominee because Tom Tillis is a traitor to Trump because he doesn't sufficiently scream his praises every second. I'm concerned that they're always going to say, well, it's the next vote. It's the next vote. I'll wait till the next vote. I'll put out the fire when it's moved from the kitchen to the bathroom. I'll put it out when it gets to the bedroom. I don't think that works in the long haul, because their fear of getting a primary and of Trump being mad at them and the MAGA base being mad at them has turned them into the most gutless pack of weasels I've ever seen.
Well,
Let me.
What's the line? What's the line?
Yeah,
is third term for Trump the line?
I got your storyline, but the problem with it is this. There's one thing that a president can force, which is the consideration of his nominees. You worked on the Hill, didn't you?
Oh, no, hell no.
Okay.
I was always I was a campaign guy. I was always a real American.
Yeah. There are 100 ways for members. Do you think that they're going to be, who's going to step forward and say, I'm carrying the Gaza bill. How many hundreds of billions of dollars do you want? And there are going to be ways that members of Congress are going to be able to slow this process down, force the focus on the things they actually have to do, and the ability of the president to meticulously forward an agenda to buy Greenland. Nobody, I mean, who's going to stand up and say
Okay,
that?
I'm going to let Molly,
just
as we
add here?
why don't you finish the process of beating this dead horse, and then I have another question.
Well, I actually have a thought, which is that this Congress is terrible at legislating, right? We've seen the House has had terrible trouble, right? The last 118, they barely got anything done. It was a historically small amount of bills passed. They're working on CRs. They don't even have, the budget's a mess. Nobody can decide 2 bills or 1, right? And so I'm not convinced that they can really legislate anything, which does support your thesis, Karl. But the question is, and this I think is where Elon Musk factors in, these people are not so interested in legislation, right? They're interested in what they can do sort of without getting caught, or with getting caught and just ignoring it. So my question is more, what's happening right now at the FBI? That's not a legislative issue. And I think
But it's going to end up in court.
Right.
If they do the 5,000.
Right.
Just like Elon Musk, you saw, now he came up with this brilliant idea, we're going to tell people, resign now and we'll give you 8 months' salary. That's now been enjoined by the courts.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these things are going to, these sort of creative things are going to end up in one way or another. You either got to do it by the rules that are in statute, or the likelihood of the court saying no, no, no are
But
high.
what we're talking about is this slow-rolling constitutional crisis where they say, okay, we're still not going to give
Yeah,
them money.
pardon me, but constitutional crisis, was anybody saying that when the President of the United States, on his unilateral decision, was saying he was going to take $800 billion of our tax dollars, of our revenue, of our asset as taxpayers, and give it away in the form of student loan forgiveness?
You know,
Yeah.
I didn't like that one.
Can we not go backwards?
Well, no.
I mean, Karl, look, I understand. I understand. No, let me finish. Let me finish.
Let me finish.
But the
No.
Two things are.
No, you're not going to finish. You know why? Because we're going to move on to another subject, okay? There's another potential guardrail that people talked about, and they said, this is going to keep him in check, the stock market. He really cares about the stock market and wants to see it go up. And Karl, you can start on this. We then have this tariff episode. I don't know where it's going to go, but do you think the stock market is a guardrail that's going to hold?
I think Lincoln was right. Public opinion is all. And I think expressed through the stock market and expressed through the bond market and expressed in public opinion polls, it will have a corrosive effect. There's a brilliant article today in the Wall Street Journal on the editorial page talking about Trump's tariff policies. I think I did a hell of a job with it myself. But this kind of stuff, the effect of this, if this was not at the center of his campaign, that 14 or 15% of the electorate that made the decision between him having 35 and 49 are going to increasingly move away from him, and we're starting to see it in the polling already. He hit his high water mark the Saturday and Sunday after his inaugural, and the more that this goes on, and the more that we have this, sort of the 5,000 people at the FBI, you are doing your job, I'm going to come after you. There's a reaction to that, and we saw it in the market when we had the 25% tariffs on Mexico and China for about a couple hours, and they ran out and said, no, we really we got a 30-day thing because we got some Mounties riding to the border in the north, and 10,000 Mexican soldiers now.
Agreements that had already been made, actually.
Right. Yeah.
So let me ask, and I have one final question for Karl, but let me ask.
Hey, why am
the
I
three
getting all
of
the
you.
questions?
Well, yeah. Why?
I mean,
Well, I just let you go first on the
Willard
last
Wilson
one
to get there
because you
first.
wanted to talk.
Hey, being the Tom
Rick.
Phillips defender isn't easy,
yeah,
all
by
right?
God,
Somebody's
I'm
got
happy
to do
to be
it.
the Tom Phillips
Rick.
defender.
I just want to go to your dad's rosary and say a prayer right now.
Rick,
Look, I think
are there any guardrails that are going to hold?
I do think Trump looks at the stock market as a sort of gross indicator of the economy in a way that if it starts to tank because of the things he's doing, it would panic him a bit. Because it is one of the things that even people, and we saw this in some focus groups last year, even people who aren't really in the market are in the market mentally. And they see that as a sort of top-level indicator. But I wouldn't count on Trump having a sort of deep cognitive function about it. It's just sort of a gut thing. Trump is not a smart man, but he's got a lot of feral cunning. And so he reads the market where it is. Although I do think we ought to go in to do like an ETF for Gaza construction equipment, armored construction. Iron lungs are going to be a great thing to invest in with RFK. But no, I think that that the market, though, depends on the rule of law. The market depends on the certitude that we live in a system that is governed by laws, not just by whim. So, in a weird way, the further he goes into the crazy stuff, Gaza, et cetera, Greenland, et cetera, the worse he has as the market, even if it's doing well, as a backstop.
Yeah. Tim?
Look, I said on election night when he won, I was like, I think that the berth of potential outcomes is actually really wide. And there's a lot of pundits, you're supposed to go on there and be like, I really know what's going to happen with this thing. And I don't. Like, I think that I thought that it could be anything from he'd be so happy that he's out of jail, he doesn't have to worry about the legal cases anymore, that he's just going to golf and like things are going to kind of run on autopilot, and like that, the post-pandemic economy is kind of moving in the right direction, and he'd kind of reap the windfall of that, and like he'd have Kristi Noem put his face on Mount Rushmore, and then he'd leave and go golf. Like that was kind of the best case outcome for me. Like I thought that was possible, and I think that a declining Donald Trump at age 82 with no checks around him, deciding that he wants to hold on to power, is like the worst case outcome that is also possible. I'm not saying it's 50% or something, but is it zero? I don't think it's zero. And so where I am right now is I think that it's closer to the bad option than the good one, but we don't really know, like because the rubber hasn't really met the road. And I only say that just because what we've seen from Elon and what we've seen from this administration so far is just a total disregard from even the plain words of the Constitution for any concern about legal checks. And maybe they'll tack back, but right now I'm seeing basically lawlessness. And so
Molly, and then
about that, I would say.
I think Tim's right. I mean, I agree. I would feel a lot better if Elon and Trump weren't this unit, because I think that Elon has a real, I would feel a lot better, because then Trump would be at least a little bit, he would be taking advice from people who live in this world in a way that's a little less scary in my mind. Like Elon has no, he's the richest man in the world. He can go wherever he wants. He's sort of, he lives it, he occupies a world that is not like any of us, I think, and has a totally different sort of worldview where the rest of us are non-playing characters. And I think that could be quite a bad outcome on a scale that a lot of us can't even comprehend. Right. So I would feel a lot better today if he and Elon, if Elon and Trump had a big fight and it was just Trump. That's all I'm going to say.
So this has been a terrific panel. And Karl, if you'll pay attention for a minute, you're
having a sidebar. We're not allowed to have sidebar.
Yeah, come on, man. We had a great question you should ask.
No, I have
How
a
long is the Elon-Trump relationship going to last?
That's actually was going to be my last question. Yeah. And
Lightning round.
And I was going
lightning
to
round.
get prepared.
Let's do a lightning round.
And since Karl, since you're so shy about talking, you have about 10 seconds to answer it. We only have 50 seconds left, so let's just go down. How long is Elon going to be around?
45 days.
Have no idea, but it's not going to last forever.
Yeah, I think a little bit longer than we think, because Elon, unlike all these other guys, he's not Scaramucci or Lewandowski or whatever. Like, he's got his own power base. He's got money and a huge platform, and I think Trump will be a little bit more reserved about throwing him overboard than he's been some other people. But it won't last forever, but I think it'll last longer than people think.
And he's installed a lot of people. A lot of his coders are working in the, I sound hysterical maybe to you guys, but
I'm all about hysteria, baby.
I think
I'm hysterical. I'm just hoping Karl's right. I'm with you.
we have
10 seconds. We got 10 seconds.
he has people ensconced in the federal government who are not supposed to be there.
Okay. Thank you all very much. Thanks.
Thank you.